least 2% of the total final energy consumption by 2030, which is quite an ambitious target given the fact that we start basically from scratch in this sector. And of course, an increase in demand will be necessary for the development of an integrated national hydrogen system. And to reach the above-mentioned target, Italy has planned a comprehensive plan which is mainly structured in two areas. On the one hand, reforms, and on the other hand, investment. And both are essential for a smooth deployment of hydrogen in the industrial sector. In relation to the demand, some sectors have been identified as priority sectors and potential consumers, considering also the readiness of them to adapt to green hydrogen. The first sector is heavy transport, of course, especially long-haul trucks and trains. And the second sector is encompasses hard-to-abate industries, in particular those industries in which hydrogen is already in use, such as chemicals or oil refining industries, and are characterized by high energy intensity and non-scalable by electrification solutions. So to meet the demand of hydrogen, Italy has planned to install 5 gigawatt of electrolysis capacity by 2026. This is our target. And we have a broader plan, which is called the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, which is a plan that has been adopted at the European Union level by each European Union member state in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So if we go to analyze what the National Recovery and Resilience Plan foresees in the hydrogen sector, we can see that the plan at the national level in Italy has an allocation of 3.6 billion euros for the development of the hydrogen sector. And in detail, we have 4 main project areas. The first one is production in H2 brownfield sites, the so-called hydrogen valleys. This project intends to recover abandoned industrial sites and create the conditions for developing a local hydrogen economy, starting with the construction of at least 10 plants by 2026. You will always hear this date, 2026, because it's the date, it's the 5 years National Resilience and Recovery Plan that sets the target for 2026. So the second sector concerns hard-to-abate industries, and the project aims at the progressive decarbonization of hard-to-abate industries, from methane to green hydrogen, and from methane to gray hydrogen first, and from gray hydrogen to green hydrogen in a second stage. The third area is the development of H2 supply chain. This project aims to support the development of electrolyzer factory and supply chain of equipment. And as I said, the goal is to reach a 5 gigawatt electrolysis capacity by 2026. And the final part, which is also very important, is research and development. And the project here aims to improve knowledge of the implementation of the hydrogen vector in all phases: production, storage, and distributions. So as you can see, the magnitude of these projects clearly shows the extent to which Italy is committed to the development of green hydrogen in our national recovery and resilience strategy. And really this shows also the extent to which we are ready to cooperate with South Africa in this very, very crucial sector. And we look forward also to join South African companies, both on the private sector level and the public sector level, because both fields are essential in this aspect, to make this South African and worldwide dream happen, as Premier Windy told us yesterday. So we are really here to cooperate with you in win-win partnerships and to grow up together with the development of green hydrogen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Poglio, for these insights on Italy's commitments. And as you said, research and development is so important. So that leads me to my next question that I have for Gianluca Valenti. He is on remote. Mr. Valenti, here you are. I'd like to ask you, what is the experience of the joint research platform on green hydrogen?
Okay, well, first of all, hello to everyone from Milano. Thanks for the invitation. With a strong statement, which is here at Politecnico, we do believe in hydrogen as a way to accomplish the energy transition and reaching all the goals this transition has. Before starting talking about hydrogen, a couple of words on Politecnico, because maybe not all the persons in the room knows about us. Politecnico is a technical university based in Milano, northern Italy. Technical university means we do teach and we do research only in architecture, design, and engineering. In particular, I heard talking about collaborations, and I would like to highlight the fact that Politecnico di Milano and African institutions, many in South Africa, are already collaborating, and it has been so for the last 20 years. I have 3 examples before I move to hydrogen. There are examples on European projects co-led by the South African government in renewables. And we know, we said it just before, from renewables to hydrogen is just one step further. And we have also projects for PhD students in both areas, as well as for a higher education. Now, given said a couple of words on Politecnico and said a couple of words on already existing collaboration, let's switch to our beloved hydrogen. Here at Politecnico, I said we believe so much in hydrogen that a couple of years ago, we started receiving phone calls from companies asking us, we're a new company to you, we're a new company to the hydrogen sector. We are afraid of missing the hydrogen train. This was the typical joke that I heard in those phone calls and telcos. So that at one point we really understood that Italian companies were looking for a place where to learn and to work on hydrogen, and the university launched a university-wide initiative which is called the Hydrogen Joint, which is an important word, Joint Research Platform. So what is this platform? It's a way where companies can meet together, join and share knowledge, strategies, technologies, as well as strategies in bringing products onto the market in the whole supply chain. So this joint platform has been established at the Fondazione Politecnico di Milano, which is a university foundation, which is the arm towards the industry of Politecnico di Milano. So what do? We do projects. So companies apply and are part of the platform by a yearly membership. And these memberships are entirely reused for supporting projects. And we have already started 4 projects. 3 projects are on scenarios analysis. Another one is on the life cycle assessment of hydrogen supply chain. And the last one of the first 3 that we launched is about the the analysis of the supply chain in Italy now, in Europe after. These first three projects are those that we call the Compass projects that produce results that the member companies can use in order to understand where to move in the big hydrogen world and where to make their investments and where to bring their interests. Also, we have technological projects in the platform, and which can be proposed by professors at Polytechnico, which can be proposed by the companies themselves. I give you a flavor of these kinds of projects. We have projects on the interaction between hydrogen and metals, which is a topic already known by the industrial sector, but not known yet by the residential and the civil sector. So that there's a need of transferring knowledge from the industrial industries have been working with hydrogen for many, many decades. Other sectors haven't. Second, we have another project on the interaction with hydrogen, between hydrogen and polymers, which is super important for the distribution of hydrogen through polymeric lines, as well as for sealings. Also, we have projects on the analysis of leakages not in open spaces, but in complex spaces, in order to see where the leaks go. For instance, what if there is a leak of hydrogen within an urban area? Which path is this hydrogen following? We also have an industrial project on they are called disasters. So, for instance, what happens if a crane falls onto a tank filled up with hydrogen? Next, to give you a flavor of the kind of project we're running over here, we have other projects for the development of materials can absorb as sponges the hydrogen, supporting the storage. We were talking about hydrogen storage, which is one of the most important keys of hydrogen, which it could be stored not only on a short term, but medium and long term, in particular seasonal storage. Here in Europe, because of the war that is going between Russia and Ukraine, we find out during summer that states are storing natural gas during the summertime to be used in the winter times. So seasonal storage, this could be done also with hydrogen. So we all find out how it is important to be able to store energy over the longer terms. And these projects are participated by companies. So companies, we propose the project, companies propose the project, and once a project is launched, the companies group, and we look for the competencies inside the Polytechnico, the technical competencies, and more importantly, the scientific competencies that are useful for the goals of those projects. And as engineers, we say that we want to give results, deliverables, information to the companies so that they can be stronger into the world of the hydrogen, hoping to allow them to have a place here at the platform where companies can make strategies together, can make products together, and once again can be stronger together in the hydrogen market.
Thank you very much, Mr. Valenti, for having described the projects you are running on the research platform. Please stay on for any questions, just as we finish the first round. My next question now is for Michele Ferrazzini. As an engineer, how do you see this energy transition to green hydrogen?
Well, thank you very much. happy to hear from Politecnico. Most of our engineers came from the Politecnico of Milano. We have research going with them on hydrogen storage, and it's very nice to come after Mr. Valenti. I have a few slides, if it's possible to see. Yeah, exactly, because this is how we are, we can say, doing the transition. We see the transition in Italy. As you see, the final project is very big, is 600 megawatt of green hydrogen, but this is not how we can really reach the point. The point is that we need a step, we need to create an environment of hydrogen in order the people and the population can be involved in that. Then even if we are jumping and we want to reach a very large hydrogen quantity, we start with a small project that is currently under development. And it's an existing refueling station, gasoline refueling station, and we are putting there PV, electrolyzer, and refueling station for buses. It's a small plant, but it means that in the big town we are working, there will start to be some buses and garbage trucks that will work and will use hydrogen as a fuel. That will be really the first step, and people and population will be involved in that, and we'll see the transport that will move. And this will be something that we will do soon. We hope within next year, but the latest, in 2024, this will be ready. And not far from that, there will be additional hydrogen produced and transported through cylinder wagons in order to reach 15 to 20 buses and trucks that can use and work and move again around the town with that. Because this will be really the first step. And when the big plant will arrive, that's what we have designed, that have also a big storage. The big plant means a 600 megawatt of electrolyzer fed by 1.2 gigawatt of offshore wind. Then the country, the place will be ready, and then we can be ready to do an additional step. Having more buses and trucks, having hydrogen in the natural gas network, fueling trains instead of diesel train that we still have in some part of the south of Italy, and even feeding a combined cycle power plant because the turbine can use up to 15% of hydrogen. Then this will be really the big step. There will be tons of hydrogen there, and this will be, but this will be related to have created an environment for hydrogen before. And the final step, the final step is sort of a dream, because we will connect by pipeline the port for ships, the airport first for the trucks inside the airport, and then doing a cryogenic hydrogen for planes. And then we also start to think to urban air mobility, and that's, we can say, it's a dream, but it's not so far. And that's something that we did in order to refuel the flying hydrogen vehicles inside the town. That's only to say that we like the idea to start from a small project and to start on a project done together with the local companies and really to join the effort for the transition before to reach the big one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrazzini. So we have a tangible project here that you're working on, and it's interesting to see how the integration between the different modes of transport, which is, I think, crucial for the future. As a manufacturer, I'd like to ask Mr. Travalos, how do you make a decision on where and when to invest?
Good, okay, thanks, and thanks for attending. So we're a manufacturer in northern Italy, and Italy, among other things, is a country of small, responsive, high-tech manufacturers. So I wanted to give you a quick presentation just to give you our sort of view on green energy, because I think what's been clear from yesterday's talks and from today is that this is an area where everybody's feeling their way. People are trying to find out what the technical model looks like for implementation, what the pathway looks like, and what's bankable and what's not. So in terms of who we are, we're R&D. We focus on electrolyzers. We build and implement in production traditional alkaline and PEM quite successfully, small footprint plants. We're developing what I guess is a useful area, which is these anion exchange electrolyzers that can take reasonably low quality water and can give you reasonably high powered hydrogen out the end without too much in the way of expensive supply chain risk components, without too much in the way of complexity of maintenance. And the reason I wanted to talk about those different types is that we think the electrolysis part of hydrogen production is well understood, and it's really quite a simple chemical problem. So you know where the optimization target is, and you have to try and get there. And that's why we try and pair development and research, which is the art of the possible. We've got about 20 professionals working there, with with the traditional kind of baseline manufacture and supply base. So we've got some of those going into production next year. But what I wanted to just touch on was, what's the frontier of hydrogen? This is where we are. It's a really exciting industry. There's lots of positivity, particularly at this conference. There's quite a lot of negativity as well. There are many people saying that, hydrogen, we've heard it all before, it's a small molecule, it's difficult to liquefy. And the key is what's bankable. And that's what we have to decide when we work out where we're investing in research and how we can facilitate projects, because the best ideas in the world are not massively useful if you can't get them into production. So bankability is key, and the frontier where we're trying to land is where reality meets the idea. So, that's where we've got a lot of interest in putting project work in place, particularly in South Africa. And we think that the biggest problem is basically this idea of catching the knife. So there's projections everywhere that costs are coming down all the way along the chain. Capital costs, operating costs, the industry's kind of maturing. It's an unusual situation where the whole vertical, because of political, environmental pressure, is changing all at once and in a non-linear way. And I think we heard from the development finance guys there, the market's absolutely pregnant with money, but it's not that easy to get it out because the evaluation framework particularly for bankability, is not really set, and things are shifting quickly. So we think the idea of plug and play, of being able to build different components and to put them into projects step by step, is relatively important. And so, of course, we're here to deliver and sell electrolyzers. We might have a look at local manufacturing. I think that would be an interesting space to move into, because South Africa is clearly heavily committed to this transition and to green energy, green hydrogen. But here's the kind of straw man that I wanted to go through. So the one thing South Africa has got, it's got quite, not a volatile, but projects are distributed. They're geographically in places that are difficult to get to in the country. You've got lots of areas where you've got kind of oversupply of renewables in the day, and you've got that running side by side with organic fuels in periods where that can't supply. And we think, and we'd be interested in maybe investing and putting effort into projects that might demonstrate the ability to decarbonize organic fuel projects, so that you've got a pathway to basically pull back from using 100% carbon footprint fuels by blending with hydrogen, maybe starting off small and then creating a kind of adjunctive framework that allows you to add components in as technical costs and technical capability crystallizes and becomes more clear. We think there's a good argument for that, and we think that probably in some of the areas where the spot power is essentially free because it's oversupplied at certain periods, and where there's a penalty for delivering fuel, and perhaps where there are broader objectives to reduce carbon footprint, because it's pretty clear there's at the moment there's a cost differential between carbon and hydrogen fuels, and that's got to be closed somehow. But we think that there are opportunities to work with emergent IPPs, particularly in the country, to see if we can deliver solutions that demonstrate that decarbonization is possible, hydrogen is part of the solution, and we think there are probably some of those where the break-even point is just about there. So we're excited about it, and that's basically what we're here to do, to work on a number of fronts, to sell equipment, for sure, but to work with South African partners to develop solutions that are fit for purpose. And I just want to echo what Michele said, which is that, okay, the big projects are great. The catalytic projects for national transformation are great, but the small projects are really where we're able to kind of test these things in anger and see if they work. And this frontier concept is important, to be able to actually turn these things from ideas and from excitement and from available funding into actual reality, into electrons on the ground. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Travalos. And indeed, as you said, you're here to look for partners and partnerships, joint cooperation. Mr. Moretti, how do we build a sustainable bridge between European and African partners?
So, thank you for being here today. My name is Alessandro Moretti. I'm partner of Andersen in Italy. As Marcella said, I'm also the honorary consul for South Africa in Lombardy. So I play a double role. Anyway, the project that Marcella was mentioning, the bridge between I would say continents, so between Europe and Africa, to develop, to grow together, is something that we started in our company 2-3 years ago, and we are mostly implementing now. And this is a right example of international cooperation between South Africa and Italy, is something that is connected with trust, exchanging of knowledge, mutual cooperation for both growing up, for companies staying in South Africa and companies staying in Italy, putting together, sharing the common knowledge, the common experience, and opening tables to where to invite companies. We have an example of 2 Italian companies here. They're not big, they're not huge, but they're doing interesting project. They came here to show what they are doing and what their purposes are. So on the other side, the table is open, and this is the sense of the bridge, to South African companies to discuss together and find out potential solution, technical solution to have to get objective, common objective to develop and to grow together. So how do we do this? We support companies from Italy. We support companies from South Africa because as a firm, also we have partners in South Africa, here in Cape Town, in Johannesburg, and we give them all the assistance they might need to develop their work, their job, and their project, and what was already said, the dream, the African dream, but why not the European dream as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Moretti. At this point, I'd like to open the floor to any questions. I will be coming around. There you go.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Khathabile Milamu is my name. I am with the South African Photovoltaic Industry Association. My question is to Mr. Valenti. I hope he's still on the call. First, thank you very much to all the panelists. I hope we'll have more ladies in the future. My question is around projects around life cycle assessment. You mentioned that you are conducting environmental life cycle assessments along the hydrogen value chain. The question is, are there any unintended consequences that you are picking up for this sector? Which sectors should we pay attention to? We do know that environmental impacts are more than just carbon dioxide emissions, right? So now we are fixated on the, greenhouse gas emissions because of global warming, but we do understand that there are other impacts. What are those impacts? And what should we be doing now as those that are developing this value chain to mitigate against whatever impact that you are picking up through your environmental life cycle assessment work? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. And my colleagues are not the only one working on the life cycle assessment of hydrogen. So in the open literature, it is possible to find other reports, other investigations. But why did we wanted to have a specific project on LCA in the platform? This is because my colleagues decided to apply a slightly different approach, which is the approach of transfer the concept of uncertainty into the life cycle assessment, because so far the reports that we have seen, they provide a number without the uncertainty of that number. So this is the emission for 1 kilogram of generated H2 for a given pollutant. But what's the uncertainty? How sure we are about that quantity? So this is the key of the project. Also, the project started 6 months ago and it's going to last 2 years. At the moment, they are focusing onto the generation of hydrogen. So the upstream part of the infrastructure. The results are not going to be used, so to say, to make a lobby, to influence lawmakers' decisions at the regional, at the governmental level. They're going to be used by the companies. Our funder companies are huge Italian companies like Eni, Edison, Snam, A2A, A2A, and Nextchem, who do companies that prepare sustainable reports at the end of the year, and they will use the results for their own also sustainable purposes. So we don't want to make a lobby. As now it is an industrial project, but nevertheless, we wouldn't mind that those results are used outside the industrial sector. Also, you were perfectly saying that today a lot of the focus is on CO2. Climate change is the focus today, but the use of hydrogen can solve other problems, might create new problems. In particular, and the energy transition as a whole could create some new problems. I'm thinking, for instance, about precious materials. They're going to be the other pollutants other than CO2, as well as pollutants regarding the mining of precious materials are going to be included in the LCA. And yes, I do agree with you that that is a topic. So CO2 is not the only argument in the LCA, but even precious metals. Hope I answer your question.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Thanks to you. Thanks to you.
Thank you so much for the session. My question is more on the components supply chain side. I am building a fuel cell factory in Johannesburg. We are in the process now of identifying components manufacturers that are going to be supplying certain components for us. Now, I was interested because, to attend this session because I know Italy has got a lot of skills in manufacturing different components for cars and so on. And our technology is solid oxide, a fuel cell. And we are working with AVL Engineering in Austria as our systems integrator. But we are busy right now finalizing the supply chain. And there are one or two components we cannot find. And I'm interested to have conversations with Italy to see if there's some things there which we can get. But I will also have a question on the AEM. I don't know how that AEM solution that you have compares with a solid oxide electrolyzer technology.
So it's a good question, and we should probably go through some detail on it. But I think very simply, the reason that we like it is that it's straightforward. It's got limited supply chain risks. So there's no PGM. There's really low concentrations of KOH, and the interfaces don't require such high quality management. So we think, everything is arriving, all these things are arriving at roughly the same efficiency, roughly. And if they can't, there seems to be a pathway to engineer them into the same, the point to the envelope of what you can get to. But everything in projects is going to be about CapEx and OpEx, depending on where it is, and supply. And we think having, the reason we focused on, the bulk of our development efforts on AEM at the moment is because you don't need to manage water quality on the way in. And in our experience, that's quite expensive, even even if it's inbuilt into the PEM type reactors. Supply chain risk is going to be a massive problem geopolitically and supply-wise as this industry comes online. And then you can get reasonable pressure hydrogen straight out the end. And so, not to make a judgment on one against the other, because we've got a horse in the race, but that's what we liked about it. We thought that these are very much serializable black box components, or they're arriving at that place. Look, there's still R&D to do, and they have to be used in anger. And there is engineering complexity, but it's inside the box. I guess that's something they've got in common with the product that it sounds like you're putting together. We think there are a lot of benefits to having products that are simple to implement, simple to maintain, and relatively cost effective. But at the end of the day, we still think the market's going to decide, and that's why we're making at the moment, multiple types of products, and we haven't decided to back one horse to the exclusion of the others. I hope that answered it.
Efficiencies, AEM versus solid oxide.
Look, it's we'd have to see in production, but I would guess they'd be about the same. I'd guess they'd be in that sort of 60s range, but where exactly? It depends on a few different factors, and they each have different inputs and outputs which affect them. But it would be great to talk maybe about the detail of those scenarios. But I think it's we were surprised actually at where it got to from an efficiency point of view. And I think, as I said, I think engineering is going to bring most of those technologies to roughly the same point, because it's a stoichiometric problem you're solving, and then it's going to be about cost and the ability to manufacture. And again, we think supply, and we think emissions, particularly unintended emissions, quite an important thing to consider when you're deciding strategically how to bet.
Good morning, everyone. Bitumelo Giapile from Enel Green Power. It is an Italian company, but I don't know these people. My question is in two ways. Firstly, to His Excellence, Mr. Polio, and also to Troy. From the hydrogen strategy in Italy, institutionally, what are the lessons that you could say South Africa can learn and possibly adopt or sharing of information. But then to Troy, you mentioned the PGM, which is one of the metals here in South Africa in abundance. You know, what avenues would companies similar also to the gentleman here, you know, what avenues can they access, you know, in terms of equipment supply, but also business strategies or, you know, operational strategies that they can learn from companies such as yourself? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to emphasize that we are both in a learning process, both Italy and South Africa. So there is nothing I think Europe can teach or Africa can learn on this sector, which makes it a very interesting cooperation project and a common challenge that we must face together. As far as Italy is concerned, I think our industrial structure is mainly characterized by small and medium enterprises. That's what makes the Italian context very specific in relation also to other European contexts. So I think the big issue is, as it has been said before, is to, of course, launch big catalyst projects that can be important catalyzers for the development of green hydrogen, but also pay attention to small and medium enterprises that in the end will be the main actors that can create the right environment for the utilization of green hydrogen in the industrial reality, not just in big sectors. I think that's the specificity that Italy can highlight in the whole global context, I think.
So yeah, just to touch on your point on PGMs. So obviously that that came up in the political and plenary session yesterday, that, you know, South Africa and Zimbabwe have got this massive kind of, I mean, many resource advantages, sun and wind and platinum and PGMs and many other things as well. So, you know, it's a threat and an opportunity like everything else. That market in terms of combustion is probably drying up where it can. There are certain links along the hydrogen chain where the jury's out. You know, where, like, an electrolysis is a key one. It may be a win, it may not. But I mean, there are a million other parts of that value chain where, you know, catalytic tech, some of which has been developed or is being developed, and some of which we probably still, you know, have yet to find, is going to be really important. So I think, you know, and this is where Italy fits in. We have to be reactive because it's a really, really unusual thing. In fact, I'm sure it's unprecedented for the whole world to change a whole vertical that's so big at the same time. And you know, it came up in the FDI speech yesterday when Namibia, you know, running it as a project, which maybe you can just about do, it's got its own risk, but in South Africa you've got all these things that have kind of got to close and come off at the same time. And so, you know, naturally that development process has got to be a little chaotic and quite responsive, and we have to keep our options open. And we think, you know, Italy is relatively well designed culturally for that. Every country is different. We are responsive, small manufacturers with good R&D capability, and we are incentivized by our governments at the national and the provincial level to internationalize. You know, to not necessarily come here and try and lock you up with sales. You know, we love to sell our products, but, you know, to develop our supply chains here, where the actual raw materials and resources are. And, you know, whatever the end result looks like, I think the political commitments yesterday show that, you know, the size and the scale of the industry growth in South Africa is, the problem's going to be meeting the targets, not finding the business. So I don't know if that answered, it was a little bit of a roundabout answer, but I hope that gave you our view on it.
Thank you very much. My name is Mohale Rakhate. I'm with the Infrastructure Fund. Thanks for the insights. Closer to the mouth. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. My name is Mohale Rahate. I'm with the Infrastructure Fund. Thanks very much for the insights. Very interesting to learn from another country. So what I just wanted to find out from His Excellency is on the state support, given that this is an emerging industry, what level of state support is there, financially to help the industry to develop? That's the first part. And maybe contextualize it in terms of South Africa. We are a developing country, fiscally challenged. What do you think we should do, in the absence of our ability to get, to support the industry from a fiscal perspective? And to Mr. Ferrazani, around the pilot that you are doing, replacing, your normal, car fuel with hydrogen. What is the premium there, and how are you solving for it? The price differential between the new and the old. And in terms of, lastly, in terms of, the displacement of, say, workers or, society, given that you are moving forward, how do you ensure that it's just? What are the elements of just transition in that you are looking at? Yeah, thank you.
So as far as Italy is concerned, we have a total allocation for the development of the hydrogen sector of 3.6 billion euros, which are allocated in the framework of our national recovery and resilience plan. Of course, most of the allocation goes to the production and distribution aspects that cover the big amount of the total public allocation. But there is also a very important component of research and development, which covers a budget of 200 million euros as well. So this is the total public support scheme that has been planned and it is already under implementation in Italy. And as I told you before, our target is 2026. So our target is to reach at least 2% of total energy consumption made by green hydrogen, and at least 5 gigawatt of electrolysis capacity by 2026. This is our plan. And for the South African part, I leave the floor.
Mr. Ferrazzini, before you respond, I just wanted to say that Mr. Valenti, Professor Valenti, needs to say goodbye to us. He has another commitment, and therefore we will, if there are any other questions, we can facilitate those later on. Mr. Ferrazzini.
Okay, well, two things about that. The first up that we can see in this change, you can feel it if you drive a motorcycle or a bicycle and if you are back on the garbage trucks or buses, and you see how you breathe instead of the buses. That the pollution will be immediately. It is something that the population feels. You have immediately an improvement of what is the pollution by trucks. Clearly, few trucks, few improvement, but this is a progress. Second point that you say, it's absolutely clear. Well, we are designers of plant, we are not politicians, but it's clear that the things have to go in parallel. This is only one of the refueling stations we are designing. The other is inside a big trucks factory. Means in the same area there is a big trucks factory that is designing and building hydrogen engines for their trucks. Means it's not only related to the improvement of the quality of the air, but it's also the continuity of the improvement of the employment in the area, of the exploiting of the natural resources that can move ahead and the industry in the area. Then It's not only to improve the environment, that's for sure the target, but we have to do that in parallel with the society without to create disadvantages of the people in the name of a future more clean ambient. Then the idea to start with small project, and this is also what we would like to do with partner in South Africa, is exactly that if we create an environment for hydrogen, means also that we develop companies that can do part of the job, people that became trained and experienced in a sense, and this can be something that all people can enjoy. That's the idea.
Thank you. Now we are looking at time, and so we are practically at the end of our session. So just one key takeaway from all the panelists here. I'd like to ask you, very spot on, how do you see the near future in green hydrogen, starting from Emanuele Pollio?
Well, I think there is an immense window of opportunity for this sector and also for the cooperation between Italy and South Africa, but in a broader context, I would say between Europe and Africa, because this is the framework where we must focus our action. So we have, every ingredient is there. I think we have both companies, expertise, and also political commitment, which is very important to face this common challenge. So I would like to share my optimism on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corazzini.
Well, I would say most of the activities we have already worked in many countries for different kinds of projects, joining and partnering with local companies. And this has been for us always the best way to work. Then this is what we really hope to do. And we think that hydrogen can be definitely a very good promise for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Travelos?
So I think in the short term, okay, in the long term the vision's quite clear and everyone's moving towards the same thing. In the short term, we have to use what we've got. So we have to look at individual opportunities. So I think there's quite a lot of scope for small projects, for adjunctive stuff that makes use of capital and improves what is there at the moment. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that, you know, there's all this money, it doesn't know where to go because there's no clear decision framework. But there is a lot of grant and development money, particularly for South African type projects. You know, we can't say this is exactly the process you would go through to get it. But projects that are interesting are worth applying for, and for sure some of them will be fundable. And many of them probably are. So I think it's worth starting and it's worth being innovative. And I think, as I reiterated, that, you know, the transition, because of the nature, the way it's happening, and because it's being pressurized, you know, from non-commercial interests or not completely commercial interests, it's going to be reactive, it's going to be responsive, and you know, it may feel a little bit chaotic, but it's going to get results, because the one thing that's clear is the support is 100% there.
Mr. Moretti?
Yeah, I think hydrogen is part of the Agenda 2030 set up by ONU, and as part of this agenda, and also Agenda 2063, I believe that it's you know, our responsibility, yeah, to look after this sector, this project. Also to not just our lives today, but to guarantee a cleaner and better world for the future, for our children and people that will come after us. So it's definitely responsibility, and we have to work on this. So this is my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the final message, and thank you for joining the Italy session. Please stay on for interactions individually. Bye-bye.